So from the screen, I just want the board. So there should be just to make sure the live stream viewers can view this broadcast. I assume you can view the chessboard I've got. We're going to look at a past encounter of Anand versus Gelfand, and I'm going to choose a very simple game to understand between them because it's Blitz. I'm sure we can try and decipher it if it's a Blitz game. I hope. So this was a Blitz Cup, World Blitz Cup in 2007, with Anand playing white, and okay, so knight f3. So an unassuming Reti opening from Anand, who was 2801 at the time of this game on the normal FIDE ratings, and Boris was 2736. So Boris has often been over 2700. Very strong grandmaster, Israeli grandmaster. So d5 was the reply, and we now see d4. Remember, this is a Blitz game, Blitz Cup, so it might actually be 5 minutes each. With FIDE usually use increments, so maybe it was a 3-second increment. I'm not sure. Does anyone know actually from the World Blitz Cup in 2007? Would it have been 5 minutes with 3-second increment? Does anyone know? Does anyone know on live stream? What would the World Blitz Cup be? Okay, okay. Knight f6, and now c4, so we have e6. We're going to get actually a Catalan now, because white doesn't play knight c3, white plays g3. So a Catalan. I just thought it's interesting to look at these other encounters as a sort of preparation to get us in the mood for their match, their World Championship match. So g3 was played by Anand, and they played a long game in the Catalan where Gelfand had actually sacrificed the c-pawn for quite a considerable time. So it's as if Anand is returning the favour here. Yeah. Sharif said, yeah, so 3 minutes 2 seconds, yeah, probably, it's probably something like that. 3 minutes, all right, not 5 minutes for the whole thing. Okay, you think 3 minutes and the 2. I don't remember any Blitz being 3 minutes. I'm sure they use 5 minutes, but anyway. So D takes c4 and bishop g2. So okay, is white going to regain the pawn anytime soon? You know, if black tries too hard to keep that pawn, you know, white's got the diagonal potential pressure, undermining moves. Black's got to be careful to set himself up if to over strain the position to protect the pawn. He plays actually a6. Hi, I'm evening 63, evening all. Good to see you all. So a6. So is black really going to try and keep the pawn? It seems when they're both on the black side of this, they tend to lose actually. So the gambit as white in the Catalan really works well in my own 5-minute games as well, funny enough. Where in the Catalan you really want to lose your c-pawn and just get dynamic pressure. It really does work a treat in all sorts of games. So even these even at the grandmaster level. So castles and then knight c6. Okay, is there some pressure on d4, or is it just nitpicking the white position? This bishop's kind of still bad. How is black possibly going to develop that bishop? It looks as though, you know, this is awkward. This is always awkward, the queen side here. So white sacrificed the pawn, and it's not even clear white's directly going to try and win the pawn back. You know, a direct way of trying to win the pawn would probably fail anyway, to like bishop takes. But you know, there's knight d2. But in fact, White's fairly, not worried about it. He just plays knight c3 because there's another intention of losing that pawn. It's this e4, e5. Just get e4, e5 in. Whoops. This lodged the knight. And, maybe make use of the diagonal. The black king's going to be casting. Maybe it's going to be dangerous. What do you guys think of this dynamic? But, in fact, after rook b8, believe it or not, I don't know how many of you would play this next move, or be shocked actually by it. I think I've biased you to think the point was e4, e5, but would many of you have considered this next move by Anand, which is actually to shut in his own bishop, e3. I know it's only a blitz game, but he's just reinforcing d4. Why would he want to just shut in his own bishop and not play e4? Does anyone... Whoops. Does anyone have any ideas about that? Why wouldn't white play like e4? And not, why did white play e3? What do you reckon? Who do you think's better in this position? Anyone? Or is it just theory? Is this just theory at the moment? All right, let's move on anyway. Okay, so b5. So is black like a solid pawn up now? What he's done is shifted the rook away from this diagonal, so that knight e5 isn't a total disaster for the diagonal. Basically. So queen e2. I've seen an Adams game where he's trying to make use of these squares. Basically getting the pawn to really get square control of the light squares. So it's not so much winning the pawn, but the positional impact. Now we see rook d1, and you might think actually, hang on, isn't black potentially coming into d3 here? Is that a sensitive square? Knight d5. But Anand's not worried about knight b4s here actually. He just plays now actually e4, inviting knight b4 for some reason. And it might be the reason might simply be d5 looks pretty strong. D5 looks good here, so there's no time for that. So black takes on c3. So we have b takes c3. So we have a strengthened centre here. Yeah. So we got a strengthened centre. It's only a blitz game anyway. They're just human, aren't they? They're going to blunder and blitz. They're not going to play even maybe their main openings. So surprise stuff. But now we see a sort of hack attack move, which I would often play in bullet. H4, using H pawn to get G5. You see, all these grandmasters are just hackers, at heart. So H4. So okay. Queen E8, and now we see. So that's a curious move. What on earth does Queen E8 do? Maybe F6 and access to H5. Could that be the point? Sorry, Tomo. The broadcast is now. I start usually at 7. So we're a few minutes in. This is Anand versus Gelfand in the World Blitz Cup of 2007. We're just having a look at some past games. Okay, Tomo. You've got the game score there. Do you want to try and catch up to move 14? This is it. This is how it's been. It's a kind of interactive live stream broadcast. Okay, so anyway, so Queen E8 to protect the knight on C6. Well, is it really attacked though? The knight on C6. Sorry. I missed it. Have I started an hour earlier? Sorry, have I just blundered started this broadcast an hour earlier? I thought it started at 7 usually. Sorry? 7 o'clock GMT London time? No, it started. We've started anyway. I mean, we've started. Okay, so let's get back to the game now. So bishop f4, attacking c7. So how does Boris defend this? It's a bit passive actually. We've still got this passive looking bishop. Okay, he's a pawn up. Yes, he's a pawn up, and it's you know, seems to be solidified that pawn, but it's underminable, isn't it? With a4 here. Okay. So bishop d8. It's passive. It's just really looking passive. And then we see h5 as if, you know, maybe h6, you know, weaken the dark squares around the king. Okay. So f6. And now we see the move h6 just undermining the pawn structure. So Boris plays e5. He can't be that happy with his position. There's a great dynamic, you know, I like the bishops here and the dynamic and the strong like centre. So actually Anand, he kind of weakens black's king safety and now plays just simply actually bishop e3. So initially you might think, well, you know, maybe takes, but then knight takes, maybe takes. If you want to protect the e-pawn, you can. But actually bishop g4. And now we see this pawn structure undermining move, a4. Okay. So a4. Undermining the pawn chain and trying to undermine c4. And also maybe, you know, trying to get, you know, the A file sort of working. So basically, it's the pawn structure under attack. So knight e7. And now A takes B, A takes B. And now Anand puts pressure on that 6th rank. So f6 under fire now from that rook on a6. So how is Boris going to fend off the pressure here? It's a difficult position, but we shouldn't really analyse this game too deeply because it's just a blitz game after all, but it is between like grandmasters. So knight g6, and now actually a dark square attack begins. You know, h6 is a bit weak, so queen d2 is a logical move, threatening immediately to win the exchange. King h8. But now possession of the A file, like possession in football, is quite useful to have possession of something. Possession of the A file here. And now E takes D. Okay, the pawn's a bit fractured now. Instead of being together. But it's important to keep that pawn there, you know, to make sure black's not going to get big pass pawns. So f6 is under fire tactically as well. That's one of the main points. Knight e5 was played here. And now more pressure on f6. Queen f4. That weakness of the last move was f4. So queen f4. Okay. So now Boris is getting in trouble, I think. He takes on f3. Takes on f3 again. But he's still in trouble. That poor f6 pawn. And it's going to be victimized further now. c6 trying to shield away from the rook. Okay, but now comes the move e5. Clever little decoy move. You can see that if black took here, I believe, I hope you can all guess it, guys. I think this is the move. With my limited tactical capability, I think I spot the next move if this had happened. Can you all guess it if I give you 20 seconds starting from now? Yeah, I think the tactical move is because the rook's a bit vulnerable. Bishop takes e5 would have happened here because the queen. You know, if queen takes, then that's so that pawn's immune. So basically, rook c8 now, but it's the beginning of the end, isn't it? Okay. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Was that a bit quick, that 20 seconds? Sorry. Rook c8. Don't worry. We'll look at some other games after. This isn't the only game. This is nearly over, this game. We're going to look at other games after. So now e takes f6, threatens like f7 mating. So rook f7 blockading the pawn. But now it's pressure on the last rank time. So protecting the rook, but then the other rook comes in. So if takes, you can imagine this is a mate, like with f7, because the pawn's stopping the king. And if bishop f6, this is mating, so that can't happen. So the blockade is trying to be lifted, the blockade on this pawn. So now Gelfand played rook takes a8. So rook takes a8, nasty pin on d8. Now notice white in all this, you know, was a pawn down. Look, it doesn't really matter, does it? Look, pawn down. You know, black has 5 pawns, but it's the quality of the pieces which count. And that's often, you know, that's what Kasparov says, that the 3 things in chess: material, quality and time, and they're all in balance with each other. Quality, time and material. So here it doesn't matter, you know, black's pawns are double anyway. The thing that matters is the quality of the rook. You know, this pin's nasty, this bishop's nasty, this pawn's nasty, the queen's nasty. Everything's kind of nasty. All the white's pieces are far from being spectators. They're kind of very well placed pieces, and this nasty pin is probably impossible to do something about, as well as all the other pressure. In fact, a beautiful move is coming up, and I hope you don't peek. So queen d7, and can you guess the beautiful move without peeking that Anand played here? So I'll give you a full like 20 seconds or 30 seconds. I really want you to spot this next move, and no cheating, no putting in an engine, no looking at the game score. I hope you can find this next tactical move that Anand played to really break the black position here. Oh, what do you mean giving up your queen with queen takes it? What nonsense! Giving up your queen? What total nonsense! No, that's the right move. That's the right move. Yeah. You're free to give up your queen, aren't you? When someone says there's something in the possession, you'll look for something. Yeah. Okay. Well done. Well done. It's a fantastic decoy, isn't it? Because takes, check. We lead to that horrible pattern with this mate. The queen would have to go in and then its mate. Oh yeah, you see the game score as well. Sorry, I don't know what to do about that. Is there a way of making that invisible? The score sheet to you guys. Can I make the score sheet invisible? I can make it to the live stream, guys, invisible. But anyway. So queen takes c6. It's a blitz game anyway. Yeah. But I still think it's quite an attractive blitz game, don't you think? This is quite attractive play from white for a blitz game especially. So so king g8 was played. And unfortunately, you know, although this doesn't lose immediately, it does lose a whole piece now. I hope you can spot this last move if I give you 10 seconds. So don't look at the score sheet. This last move, come on, you all got it. Yeah, it's a pin on the bishop. That's the clue. You've got a pin on the bishop. Pin and win. Why is there that expression, pin and win? Because you can celebrate the pin. And here it can be celebrated. So you can all guess the move, can you? Start screaming it out. Yeah? Yeah? Okay, yeah, sorry. Okay, bishop b6. Let's move on to another game. But let's do a quick overview and summary. So these guys know how to play the Catalan, losing the c-pawn, without bothering to try and win back the c-pawn. It's just the quality of the pieces here. And not even going for an immediate e4. Can we actually just try and analyse this? What was actually wrong with this immediate e4? Does anyone have a clue here why e3 was played? Anyone have a clue? Actually, there is a little subtlety, you know, about this, which I've noticed. I might try and offer a reason. Because if you look at the game, you know, e3 did actually give that pigeonhole square e2 for the queen. Which means then, once the queen can be put on e2, then rook d1, and then you play e4. So you play it in a delayed way, but in a safer way, perhaps. Perhaps that's the reason. Because how does white achieve, like, e4 here, and then how can he play queen e2 without dropping d4? It's not possible, is it? Is that possibly the reason? So e3, slowly but surely, he'll play queen e2, rook d1, and then e4. Could that be the reason? Slowly but surely, yeah? Because there's pressure on d4 to cope with. Would you say? Well, I offer that as the reason before going on to the next game. So there was a slow e4 preparation, and we have this dynamic now where I think the quality of white's pieces are better than black's, and of course the kingside attack helps. You know, the dart square attack, particularly f6 here, and black's position started crumbling. So really we can say that Anand is a dynamic attacking player, and given this sort of position he'll tear it to shreds. You know, he'll lift the blockades, he'll sacrifice his queen if necessary, even in the Blitz game. So he's pretty good, Anand. But let's look at another game of these two. I hope you enjoyed that first little one. And I'm going on chess games here. If I can just choose another game from chess games, get the PGN. Okay, so I'll take another win. So that was from the World Blitz Cup. We can take a Sicilian Najdorf game, I think, and have a quick look at that. Okay, so this was chorus we can see. I hope that's a reasonable pronunciation. In 2006, so Anand White against Gelfand 2006. So this was a long game in the Sicilian defence. So e4 from Anand. Okay, so we have the Sicilian defence. So Boris has been playing the Sicilian a lot in his career, not just in the recent matches. I heard he played something boring for a long time. Was it the Petrov? And he's gone back to the Sicilian. Is that true? Does anyone know? Sorry, Z is pronounced say, probably. Is it? Oh, thanks very much. So how did you guys enjoy that first game? Are you okay? Yeah? You okay on live stream there? Okay, so I'm just wondering. Okay, so so knight f3. Okay, d6, open Sicilian, and now we see knight c3, a6, common move a6. So a6 cuts out. Whoops, a6 cuts out the bishop b5 checks, and if you want to go into a Scheveningen, it will be e6. But this doesn't have to be played. So e5, just Najdorf stuff, standard. So bishop e6, as though black's going to strike out with d5. Especially if white plays the move g4 at some point, you know, d5 is going to hit hard. So white's got to be wary about black liberating with d5. So we see bishop e3. Will Anand really continue with this plan of queen d2 and make, you know, maybe g4, g5? Maybe he's going to fling up all his pawns soon. Knight bd7. So he does indeed play queen d2. You know, let's be relaxed about this. Is still fun at this top level, you know. So b5 and the fun continues. Castling queenside. Okay, so how does Gelfand play this position? Does he really want to castle into it? You know, bishop e7, he's offering a free target, isn't he? For g4, g5. So instead he plays on the queen side. He plays actually the move knight b6. So he wants to get, doesn't mind bishop takes b6. And, try and use that c4 square, the semi-open file pressure. Maybe even the knight might consider knight a4, you never know. But in fact, the knight was prompted to do something here by Anand's next move, queen f2. So just hitting that b6 knight. The queen's also, I guess, useful, maybe later on these squares. But at the moment, the main threat, if the main threat's parried with rook b8, I wonder what would have happened. If rook b8 had been played, can any of you guys spot anything of great significance here? Or is this just a silly question? Is it a passive move, rook b8? You really want your rook on the c file. You want to use that c4 square, don't you? You want to get rid of this guy. What would you say, rook b8? Is there any decent move for white here? Anyone? Just passive. Yeah? Okay. Maybe knight a5, as some of you guys are saying on live stream. So, okay, so maybe knight a5, and it looks pretty bad. Actually, that's threatening. Actually, that's threatening knight c6 anyway. So that doesn't look too good. So, so actually, knight c4 was played, but we're getting rid of this seemingly precious light square bishop, or are we? So takes, and now he takes with the b pawn. So the rook can even use the b file, immediately target maybe b2 later. Forget the c file. But knight a5 still is played. After queen d7, is this knight in trouble? In fact, what happened there? Why couldn't the black queen take the knight? I think I spot, with my limited calculation powers, what could occur here. Can you guys spot it if I give you 20 seconds? What would be your next two moves for white to win here? If I give you 20 seconds. Starting from now. Yeah, I think you guys got it. Bishop b6. It seems to be trapping the queen, actually. Because where's the queen going? So queen, and then you play what in this position? Yeah. I think the queen's got nowhere to run. So that was a clever move. Maybe that was missed. I don't know. Knight a5. It means now that rook b8's ruled out, because then knight c6. Forking, Okay. So queen d7. Maybe that's a concession. This knight's a bit nasty. This bishop's a bit nasty on b6. And now we see the move rook d2. Just double up rooks on d6. And black still hasn't connected the rooks. Okay, so bishop e7. He's trying to castle now. Maybe rook hd1. What's the immediate threat? Is it just pressure on d6 for nothing? Or is there actually an immediate threat here with this move? Well, actually, there seems to be a latent threat, as the game indicates, of bishop c5. So if castles, maybe bishop c5 is good here. That's possibly, so it's not just doubling rooks against something which seemingly is protected, it's this queen pin. So rook b8 and bishop c5 anyway. So black's in trouble, actually. Or is he? It's early in the game. It was actually a very long game. Maybe he wasn't in such significant trouble as this seems to show currently. Losing that d6 pawn might be generating some compensation for black. So queen c7, actually, isn't that just hitting two pieces anyway? It's a whole piece sack. What's going on now? So bishop takes d6, or rook takes d6. Actually, rook takes d6 was played. And it's starting to get frightening how tactical And I've seen this in previous encounter games, how when there's tactics, you know, Anand is somehow playing these magical moves all of a sudden. Bang, bang, bang. Magical moves. What on earth is this about? Okay, so if bishop takes d6, then bishop d6, I guess, is skewering queen and rook. So instead, queen takes a5. But now the next move seems a bit of a shocker. Making use of the king in the centre, though, he plays rook takes e6, and he leaves the king in the centre. Whoops, rook takes e6, so f takes. So he leaves the king in the centre after bishop takes e7. And was it too dangerous to take with the king here? It wasn't actually taken. I wonder if you can spot why it wasn't taken. If I give you 20 seconds here. You guys can spot why this wasn't taken here. Yeah? Yeah, I think queen a7 check will be within the rook, technicality, because the king is forced to disconnect the rooks. You just take the rook. So instead, black, you know, he played rook b7. So what's the material situation now? White has 3 bits. He's the exchange down. For how many pawns though? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for a pawn. Okay, can he get another pawn soon? He plays bishop d6. Okay, so the king can't easily castle, but you know, maybe you'd think king f7 might be possible soon. But actually knight d7 was played. And then we see this move, queen h4, immediately threatening mate. Actually, it's quite an unpleasant threat. So queen d8 parrying the threat of mate. Check. g6. Queen h6. So the queen can still infiltrate. So this is good compensation for the exchange, isn't it? Because this rook's a bit of a spectator piece. These pieces are beautiful. But the knight can't get into d5 yet. This pawn's kind of a saving resource to have. But this queen is too dangerous, surely. So queen f6. There's a threat of exchanging off the queens now, surely, with queen f4. That'd be check. So knight e2 stops that. So the game continues. Gelfand exchange up, faced with a lot of pressure. In fact, also knight e2 supports f4 maybe and e5 at some point. So king f7, but h4 first. And then we see g5, getting the queens off maybe, at the cost of another pawn. So 2 pawns for the exchange now in this position. This should be enough compensation. What do you guys think of this position? Who do you think is better here, white or black? Or do you think it's too complicated? Do you think it's about equal? Do you think both sides have got chances? Or do you think Anand's position is on the way up? Actually, if you look at the structure, this is a bit of an ugly structure. 2 isolated double pawns, isolated pawn, isolated pawn, isolated pawn. Anand has a neat pawn island here and a neat pawn island here. So the pawns are better for Anand, but he is the exchange down. So who do you prefer? I don't want to bias your evaluation of this, but if you had this position, would you be happy with white playing the exchange down? I think if you can get 1 or 2 pawns for the exchange, it's usually okay. And it looks as though white's got the better prospects to increase the advantage here. That's what I think. Maybe I'm biased with the result of the game though. So rook g8, g4. But g4 does support now knight g3. And that knight could be useful on g3. But also rook h1 if rook g6 is still possible. In fact, that happened. The bishop's driven back. This pawn, is that a problem now? It can be defended. Rook h3. Is king g5 going to sneakily win that pawn now? That's the question. King d2. It wasn't actually played here. King G5 wasn't played here. I think Bishop E7 would be a rude awakening there, skewering the rook against the king. So that's probably why. So the king was brought in. The knight's improving now. Okay, the rook, where is it going? Oh, the knight's going to C5. From C5 it will hit E6 maybe. And also A6. Oh, we've got quite a few moves now of shuffling. So Anand loses another pawn. He's only a pawn for the exchange after losing that pawn. But now he's 2 pawns for the exchange again. Fine. So how is he going to improve his pieces? That knight is the one now which got access to D5. Remember that pawn on E6? No longer there. So maybe get a knight to D5 now. So once the knight's on D5, this is looking rosier for white. Bishop B4, that all-powerful knight is supporting the bishop. And now the bishop can go here. Maybe pressure on E5. Okay. So pressure on E5 and maybe F4's on the cards against the black king. It looks beautiful. The knight and bishop look beautiful now. So rook F2, preparing F4 slowly, tortuously, or not. Oh, he just gave up the E5 pawn. Why did he give up the E5 pawn now? Because he's going to win F3, is that the case? Ah, or use knight takes E4, okay. But there's still more potential, it seems, for white's pawns now. And is C4 dropping? Is black under severe pressure? I think this is easier to play for white. Although the exchange down, that knight is huge. It's got F6. Maybe it can be reinforced to get into F6. Check. Snaps up that pawn. The knight's protecting G4 here. Now these pawns can start moving. We've got loads of passed pawns here, ready to run. So it looks as though all the prospects in white's court. Check. And after E6, actually, Gelfand resigned. So it started off with seemingly nitpicking, I don't know, tactical precision, engineering moves actually from Anand. That if we look at this game, it wasn't a stereotypical game by any stretch. There wasn't a clear-cut attack at any point. There was like these tactics now emerging. You know, knight A5. And now there's pressure on D6 for bishop C5 to come in. And kind of an exchange sack is implied now after rook takes D6. Because of this like amazing, you know, tactical idea of getting to A7. Maybe not that amazing because you couldn't, you know, the king is not the best piece to have in the centre. So the exchange down, working the exchange down, and ground down Boris here in this encounter. So it seems as though white had a much more pleasant game all the way through in retrospect. I don't know what you guys think. White had a great game here without too many issues. Do you think? And here it was almost inevitable. Black was going to lose now. There's pressure creeping on those pawns, and the knight was just really good. So I don't know, what do you guys think of that game before we move on to another? Do you think that was okay by Anand? Do you think it was brilliant or just okay, or what do you guys think? We'll move on to another game anyway. Okay. We'll find another game. Should we pick one where Gelfand won? I can't stand the Slav opening, so maybe the Nimzo-Indian be more interesting. Okay. So this was in Munich, 1991. Boris, playing white, played d4. So we have actually a mainline Nimzo-Indian, none of this chicken knight f3 business. Knight c3, allowing the pin. Bravery. So Nimzovich system, Nimzo-Indian. Queen c2, one of Kasparov's favourite moves in this position. Off the castles. Now white grabs the two bishops, but this comes at this is potentially losing trump cards, because the two bishops come at a cost. White really isn't developed here, so black often tries to like rip open the centre and exploit a lead in development. But actually b6, bit tame maybe, b6. Okay, so bishop g5 and bishop b7. So black's obviously putting control efforts onto e4. So e3, and now we see h6 trying to break the pin. Bishop h4, and now we see d6. So white has the trump cards of the bishop pair, but still needs to develop all his pieces. So we see the move f3, so that means e4 is going to be good later, potentially. And now a surprising move, a very exciting move. Now don't all be totally like shocked and amazed by this next move. Castling queenside. Is that outrageous or what? Isn't there more responsibility when you castle queenside? Is this justified in this particular position? Castling queenside. Have you guys seen this before? Straight out of a seemingly bog standard Nimzo-Indian with queen c2, but castling queenside. So is the king going to be potentially slaughtered on the c file, or is this a dream? I don't know. So d5, and now an even more shocking move, just to keep the queenside closed, c5, immediately threatening to win a piece actually with c6. So Anand plays actually the move bishop c6 here. So this sets up some nasty ideas. Maybe bishop a4 is going to be useful. If taking, the rook c8 is going to, the queen can't take on c6, but he takes on b6 anyway, and then king b1. So now rook c8, rook c1. So who's better here? What's going on here? Actually, white in this position also has the potentially nice move bishop a6 to try and contest that c8 square. Bishop b7 was played. Now a retreat, queen e1. Rooks come off. Queen a8. As if, wants to keep the queens on. Rook c8. Maybe is black trying for an attack? I don't know. It doesn't look like black's in a position to attack white very easily. So a5, maybe he's just trying to trade off the light square bishop now. Queen f1, stopping that, because that's reinforcing a6. Now e5. After knight e2, we see e4, quite committal play. Bishop b5. Well, at least this diagonal's been shut off away from the king. It's all about other things, maybe dark squares. So knight c3 or b5 is generally quite weak here. Now Anand actually plays an interesting move, as if the g file is not dangerous. This g file looks dangerous. He plays actually e takes f3. Doesn't that look a bit crazy to you guys, to play e takes f3 to allow g takes f3? It looks as though black's in for slaughter time, doesn't it? Would you say? After g takes f3? What was Anand playing at? This is 1991. Maybe it was Anand. I don't know what his rating was in 1991, but do you think this is kind of risky, this g file here? What was Anand's FIDE rating in 1991? Does anyone know? Maybe it was like 2600 something. Anyway, this g file just looks very, very scary. But rook e8 maybe is counting on the central pressure. And he takes on b5. White hasn't got too many pieces, it would seem. And in fact, plays rook e1. Forget the g file. He's got to take care of e3 here. This is the point. If the knight can shield the g file anyway, it's no big deal. Okay. Knight d6 though. Now there might be knight f5 from f5 there might be pressure. There's the c file as well. There's access to c8. So knight f5. Now the g file is used. Rook g1. Looks a bit scary. Bit of cat and mouse games here. Bishop e5. Finally something active. So g7 is potentially under fire. And Anand allows it with this combination. He allows taking on g7. Isn't this really scary for his king? When he plays rook g5, maybe he thought this was okay. He's getting the rooks off, and now with knight and queen, what damage can be done? Surely not much. Knight d4, nice blockade, nice control of b5, but is it enough to try and win this game? Doesn't even mind the knight ending. Oh, don't tell me Anand was outplayed in a knight ending from this position. Is that sad? I guess the king has got a free ride to come to d4 here to put pressure on, and also this b5. You know, maybe I don't know, maybe over here. So the king starts marching in. Maybe protecting f3 or moving it. Okay, moving it. Okay, the king is getting carnivorous. It's going to go over, maybe over there. He doesn't mind being a pawn down temporarily here. Boris doesn't mind it, because if this knight moves, then d5 drops. If it doesn't move, then what happens? This pawn might, well, not quite. Maybe h5, h6 is the intention. Oh, Anand was 2635 at the time. That's very interesting. So Gelfand was the higher rated player, 2700. So knight e3, he's winning that d5 pawn anyway. So the king remains more active. So maybe f6 is under fire. In fact, so why did black have to lose a pawn here? Let's just rewind that. Check king e3. Why couldn't black... He played knight c5. Why couldn't he just defend the pawn with king f7? Is there a problem here with king f7? Out of interest? How do we end up losing this? Anyone know? Someone suggested knight c3. Maybe knight c3. Okay. No idea. Okay, let's move swiftly on. Okay, it's probably just better for white. So knight c5. The pawn was dropped. To get knight a4 in. Maybe he was just banking on pressure on white's pawns. But check. So these pawns on the queen side look terribly vulnerable now. And in fact here, Anand resigned. So it looked as though he was going to be attacked during that game, and he ended up just losing a knight and pawn ending. Is that an anticlimax of a win? That white castled seemingly with an exciting idea in mind, casting queenside, and he ended up winning this knight and pawn ending. I mean, that's quite funny. I don't know. It's a bit odd, isn't it? It's this willingness to just play the position, whatever that is. Oh, sorry. Let's go back to the ending. Okay, shall we go back to the ending in particular? We'll go back to this tricky ending. So this was starting to get tricky for black. So white was a pawn up, but because of knight e3, the king is still going to make inroads. So we saw knight e3. Is it really lost for black, this position? b5, so he took... so there's a threat, you know, of going to be king c5, maybe. So that's stopped. King c5 is stopped. There's a threat potentially of king f5. Check. Check. Now the king goes here. So, okay, let's try and answer this question. King f7. Can someone put this into an engine, this position? Is it knight c3? Is it to do with the queenside pawn vulnerability? If the pawns are encouraged to move forward, then that pawn's dropping off, isn't it? It's dropping off. If knight c5, king d4 now. So maybe it's as simple as that. If knight c7, then maybe the king's infiltrating, king d4 here, and then it's going to get to c5. And again, these pawns are vulnerable. So I guess that's the case for winning this endgame. Knight c3. Oh, sorry, Starshow, you're saying knight f4. You're saying knight f4 here. Well, this might be good for white, this position. Don't know. Yeah, this would be a sort of Zugsbang, wouldn't it, this position? So if black didn't exchange off the knights, and say black played knight c5, yeah, I think that's a good move as well. So Fritz thinks the right move is knight f4. Okay, knight f4. We've only got 5 minutes left. What do you guys want to do for the last 5 minutes? Shall we whiz through another game, or should we just... I'll take questions now for the last 5 minutes about any of those games. Or can you check out live stream Tom? Oops, wrong typing window. Sorry. Can you guys check out livestream.com Kingscrusher? There's lots of videos at livestream.com Kingscrusher and also YouTube.com Kingscrusher. So, and I might do some videos. When is the World Championship, by the way? When is the event happening between Gelfand and Anand? Does anyone know when it starts? When is it scheduled to start? Anyone? Next year? Crotel, someone on live streams. Next year, someone's saying, okay, cool. So it's a long wait then till next year, though, isn't it? Okay. I hope you enjoyed this week, and enjoy your chess generally. Chess is fun. So, okay, have a good week, and I'll see you next week. Unless you've got any other questions, I'll be here for the next couple of minutes. Thanks very much. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Mo Fabano. Thanks, guys, on live stream for following this. So this is every Tuesday, round about the same time. ChessSpace have me chained up to do this lecture, whether I like it or not. Doesn't matter if I'm on death's door, I'm going to try and do this lecture. Okay, yeah. Doesn't matter if I haven't played any games for months, I'm still going to do this lecture. Or lose my interest totally in chess, I've got to do this weekly lecture. No, I really enjoy it now, it's really good fun. Okay, see you next week then. Cheers.